All right, we are officially live for the second episode of the My Latin Life podcast, your trusted guide to Latin America. And I'm extremely honored to be here with the one and only Mr. Mark Zolo. Mark, how you doing?
Doing great. Doing great there, and yeah, life is looking pretty peachy right now. For those who don't know about my blog or my history, I recently bought a sailboat in the Caribbean. So next week I'm off for a couple of months to sail around the islands of the Lesser Antilles. So I'm not in a bad mood. I'm not in a bad mood.
That's awesome. And for the moment, you seem to be a little bit more bundled up. I'm not sure if you're in
Yeah,
Malta. I didn't, but
I,
you got the scarf going and everything.
yeah, I'm in Malta right now, and it's pretty cold actually. Even though we're right below we're below Tunis in Africa here, but it
hmm
still gets pretty nippy in the winter, or it can. Not too bad. It's a lot better than Ireland, but yeah, it's pretty cold.
Awesome. So we'll start off with a little cheers.
Cheers.
I said this to you offline, but I can't not have Mark Zolo on the line without having a little drink. So here we are.
Nice, living up to the stereotype. But yeah, it's true. I mean, I own a couple of bars here. I'm very much an Irish stereotype at this stage.
And, just wanted to double down on thanking you for coming on. We're kicking off this brand new direction for My Latin Life and also a podcast as well. So for our first episode, we had on Vance, the founder of My Latin Life, who created it back in 2014 and was running it basically full time up until 2021. And Vance and I are good friends, and so I've kind of stepped in. And like I mentioned to you, we're going to take it in a new direction, basically as a nomad capitalist for Latin America, and getting into some of the more advanced topics like passports, residencies, taxes, investing in real estate, and everything else. And I think in this discussion, we'll get into a little bit about the evolution of brands and maybe even cancel culture, but I don't want to go too far that direction. But but maybe to start it off, you could give us a little background about yourself and let people know who you are for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, so I started blogging like a little over 10 years ago. I was very lucky when I was 18 because I got to go to a scientific expedition in Antarctica, and that kind of lit the match for my thirst for adventure. And so then the next year I went to Southeast Asia. I went from Cairo to Cape Town the following year to Africa,
hmm
and I started having all these crazy experiences and adventures. Not like your typical backpackers I would talk to. My stories were always just a bit wild, and eventually everyone was telling me to write a book. So I did. Naughty Nomad, it was called. That's why I started the blog, naughtynomad.com.
hmm
Because I was really telling stories that were real. You know, you read books and you watch YouTubers and other travel bloggers. No one really talks about how it really is, with a bit more the rock and roll aspect of it. So I just laid it bare. I noticed there was no really good resources for men online for, where to go to, meet people, or if you wanted to score a bit of weed or something like that. So I saw a kind of a gap there. So I started
hmm
writing city guides as well. So I've written over 100 men's city guides now, in the last 10 years. And after my first book, I got to number one on Amazon for travel writing, which I was really, really happy with. Then I moved to New York. I wrote a book about New York. And then I wrote my last book, which was, I think, released only last year or 2 years ago now, which was My Life as a Mexican Pirate. So basically, to up the score after my first book, what we ended up doing was traveling to like war zones like Syria, Somalia, all over
hmm
West Africa, dressed like Mexican pirates. I know it sounds crazy. Actually, I have a copy here. Oh yeah, that was the first one there. That's the first one, yeah.
Awesome.
And the second one, the new one. That's this one here. Oh, you see that? Yeah, that's me there. Yeah, we used to go like dressed like this with sombreros, swords, fake mustaches all around the world and party basically. And yeah, that got to number one on Amazon for travel, for adventure travel, should I say? And it's been received really, really well. I'm just finished the audiobook. I'm just redoing the first three chapters because I was finding my flow. But
Yep,
chapter
your
4, I
voice.
got it. Yeah. So yeah, that's coming out soon. But now, as you've seen on my website, I'm kind of retired from that because I recently got hitched. I'm gonna start a family probably this year after the sail trip. So now I'm kind of that inspired my last post, which was RIP the Naughty Know, my blog. I'm gone sailing. So that's kind of
Yep,
a
retired and
summary.
gone sailing.
But yeah, and just in personal life, I after New York, I moved to Malta. It's where I am now, and I own now a couple of bars and restaurants. So that's kind of yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. And I've read both books. I've read the majority of the
Oh,
city
nice.
guides on your website. And one of the things I found remarkable was basically how young you got started. I mean, you did your first trip to Africa when you were like maybe 17 or something.
I did my first trip to Southeast Asia at 19. So 18 was
Mm.
Antarctica. 20 was my first trip to Africa, Cairo to Cape Town. I was 20.
And so when most people are going to university age 20, 21, 22, and they're just worried about getting into the next geology class or whatever, you were doing the craziest stuff of all time in Southeast Asia and of course in Africa as well. Did you feel young at that time? Did you feel early? I mean, that was just very early. People back home must have been like, "What?" Like maybe for like a 25-year-old dude, but like you're 20, you kind of got no money. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was that first trip in Africa. We were really on a budget because I was in college and so was my mate. So we would wait for the summer break. So we'd work during the year, and you have 3 months off in the summer. So those three
Hmm.
months we would always travel. But we were seriously on a budget that time because I remember we had tents with us, and we'd camp and some hostels we couldn't even afford. Sometimes we camped hidden behind the toilets in the hostels and stuff like that. So we were roughing it a bit, camped in the desert and all that kind of thing. Weren't big on drink that trip, but we definitely splashed on what was imported, like safaris, skydiving, quad biking, diving with great white sharks, all
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I felt young, but I mean, 18, went to Antarctica, so that's hard to. You can't go on a summer holiday with the lads to Greece like everybody else after that. So it's kind of I set the bar pretty high early, and that's what kind of inspired me to take on like big adventures early.
And I believe you won a scholarship related to Shackleton, right? Something like that.
So as part of when I went to Antarctica, it was part of a thing called Angashka, which is the President's Award. In the UK, they call it the Duke of Edinburgh Award. It's the
Yep.
equivalent.
Yep.
Yeah, and I actually got I actually kind of was chosen to represent my country for that because of the effort I put in to do the adventure part of the trip. And I actually met Shackleton's cousin. He happened to live in where my ex is. This little town in Ireland. My ex was living there, and so I met him. He kind of got me in touch with everybody to get on the boat. But yeah, I ended up speaking and giving a speech in front of Prince Philip and our President McAleese. I ended up going to dinner with them afterwards as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I had a pretty I had a pretty special uh, latter part of my school years. When I was around 18, I mean, things were looking rosy at that phase, I suppose.
For sure. And do you continue to be a big fan of Shackleton today? Do you have like any Shackleton memorabilia?
Memorabilia, no, I only have the Endurance, the book.
Mhm.
Obviously, his story, the fact that, and him and Crean, obviously fellow Irishmen and sailors, very famous sailors. It's nice to kind of things to come full circle, and for me to take up sailing as well. So that's something that I've done recently, and I'm delighted now to kind of continue that. But no such memorabilia, not here anyway.
And just to double down on Ireland, both the original Vance and myself kind of have some Irish in the family. I
Nice.
don't want to give too many specifics away, but there might be some passports by descent floating around and whatnot. I went to Ireland just this past year as well. Visited. the hometowns of some of the branches of my families and stuff. So
Well,
always have enormous
what county may I ask?
Sligo and Donegal.
Oh, nice. Donegal's lovely.
Hmm. And where was I going with that? I was actually just speaking to Vance. We shouted you out on the first episode as well as to how he got inspired to start writing city guides. And one of the things that really struck me was that how, even though it was admittedly like crude in some places, you always did things with a measure of class and intelligence, and it was always exceptionally
News to
well
me.
written.
Well,
No,
thank
I
you.
found that to be the case. I mean, I think there was sort of like a it factor that you have, and that your content had, that really made it identifiable for a lot of people.
Well, man, I appreciate that. That's great to hear. And that's exactly what I was kind of trying to do. Like, I like to think of myself as kind of a down to earth person, one of the lads. And I kind of, I kind of get kicks from just getting people, geared up and motivated to go travel because you can just be a normal guy and you don't have to be rich or have the resources to go out on these amazing adventures. And it's you only live once, so why not? And that's if I can inspire someone to do that. So that's really cool to hear that you guys took away that from it. So that's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I asked Vance this, but um, I asked him, where did the idea for the city guides come from? And he basically put all the credit on you. So now I'm going to ask you, Mark, where did the format or the idea of the city guides come from? Did it originally come from like Roosh V forums, or is there some sort of like earlier origin to the city guide? How did that whole format come about?
It was definitely Roosh V stuff. He had, I think, one of his first blogs was called like Real Men Travel Guides.
Hmm.
And even before I started the blog or do anything, I actually contacted him by email and I said, "Yo, man, I love what you're doing here." He had come up with like a crude rating system as well, like similar to what I have. I credited him on the blog. Now he's gone all Jesus. Now he's probably not very proud of it anymore. But yeah, so I actually contacted him and said, "Listen, I'll write guides for you." I just wanted to write guides. I didn't care about money. I didn't care about. I just wanted to write. I wanted to help and contribute. And he said, "No, I'm not really into that site anymore. I'm doing kind of my own personal blog thing." So I said, "All right, I'll do my own thing." And so credit where credit's due. I mean, he kind of
Hmm.
he kind of definitely uh, paved the way in that regard.
And there's a lot of different terms for the same thing. I think in Roosh V it was typically called a data sheet, and
Yeah.
data sheet is a common term. City guide is a common term. Is there a difference, or was there like an evolution there?
Yeah, I don't know where the data sheet came. I think it was G Manifesto. I think that was his kind of term he used. Yeah, I don't know where the term data sheet came from, but yeah, what do you call it? Like a men's city guide.
For sure. And another funny piece of information that I'm basically going to dig up for sort of longtime fans here is that one thing you'll notice if you go through the data sheets on Naughty Nomad is you might notice a commenter with a remarkably familiar logo, and it's a bald guy with a red star in the background, and it looks surprisingly similar to the wildly popular YouTuber Bald and Bankrupt today. Do you know that Bald and Bankrupt was like an early fan of yours back in the like 2012?
Yeah, so this is come to light. I didn't know he had a YouTube channel going on, and I'm not sure how much I could say about this, but I was contacted by a mutual friend of his. I understood that he was under attack by some people on Reddit and stuff. So I respectfully removed some posts he made on my forum. Out of respect or whatever.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I didn't know that till I was emailed about deleting posts. And then I saw all those Reddit posts. I was like, holy crap! Fair play to him, man. He's made a great going of it. The YouTube channel seems wildly popular. It's still going, I presume.
It's huge. It's huge. It's
I
got
mean,
more than a
PewDiePie mentioned him, so he must be massive.
It's got more than 1,000,000 subs. Every video he posts basically hits 1,000,000
Wow.
views. It's killing it. So it's interesting because it's a guy that was, I don't want to say like in the later innings, you know what I mean? But he sort of was able to reinvent himself, but still kind of retain some of that foundation and some of that inspiration from explorers such as yourself that came before him.
Yeah, it's a pity that the way you know we were living in this sort of cancel culture, wokeism kind of thing that's going on, where there people are trying to cancel him because oh no, he liked to meet women along the way. It's kind of ridiculous, but that's where we're at now. Even me and other guys, we're all moving from blogs to YouTube, and we kind of have to clean up our act a bit because we can't speak plainly. We got to watch the censors, and we don't want to bring the mob against us. I mean, I've been attacked by the Sunday World, and obviously pour a drink for Tom Terrero. What happened to him recently with the article in Newsweek. I mean, it's a bit sad that like guys have to kind of tone things down. We can't really be ourselves, and so it's a real pity. I hope that changes with decentralization and if we can migrate off these big tech companies in the future. But as it stands, it looks like that kind of era, the blogging era with all the manosphere, the original guys, that kind of era is a little over. Roosh found Jesus. I'm starting a family. Everyone else is getting a bit older, and game is demonized. I mean, how many young men now know about game even?
They learn about it in a different way, that's for sure. There's definitely a bit of a new generation coming up of dating coaches and stuff like that, but it was definitely a lot more raw about
Yeah.
10 years back.
Oh yeah, I look back some of my posts, and the thing is, certain times you would write to purposely incense and you infuriate.
Hmm.
You want to get hate clicks. So they unfortunately they would get the most views if you were a bit controversial. So, but now I look back and say, oh, that might bite me in the ass. I'm gonna delete that. It was raw. It was raw.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to you for sticking up for Tom Torero. Obviously, R.I.P. and very sad to hear the news. Definitely another individual that I learned a lot from, consumed his content, and don't want to dwell on it too long, but just wanted to thank you for being willing to stand up for it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, because I know what it's like, man. I said I had that Sunday World. I had a 2-page spread in our national newspaper. People organized against my family business. It was all my
Oh
village,
wow.
and it was complete libel as well, absolute libel. Now, luckily, they had the online version. The libelous quote that was in the newspapers after a bit of pressure was taken down, but he basically implemented, or sorry, like the Tom thing, they insinuated that I had committed a crime of some sort, which I did not. And they don't care. They just want a snappy headline for clickbait. They want to drag people through the mud. So
Hmm.
I sympathize, but even worse for him, like they cancelled. I think they got all his payment processors cancelled him, all his platform. It was absolutely disgusting what happened, and uh, I mean, it's like you remember during my attack was during the Roosh V thing. And do you remember that time there was like 1,600 articles written around the world when he wrote that "How to Stop Rape" article, and they were calling his forum like a rape apologist group or something ridiculous. I mean, listen to the sound of that, like rape apologist group subject, and they wanted an Irish angle. I was the Irish angle because I advertised on a site for my New York book, and they just dragged me through the mud. So, God, it wasn't a nice time.
And yeah, just to sort of like buckle the buckle on this topic. I mean, so you've decided to make a bit of a evolution in your blog and your brand as well. Um, I think you
In my
also
life,
did
in my life more
and
so. The
your
blog is
yeah,
a
in your
bonus.
life more so. I mean, so you hit the big 3-5, I guess. Which I did you feel that 3-5 was anything particular about that age? Did that really feel like a milestone, or like why not when you were 30 or 32 or 40?
Well, actually, I hit that milestone or that way of thinking when I was 27. I wrote a post called "Beware Becoming Imprisoned by Your Persona," and it was
Right.
that kind of that time where I was aware. I was very aware I was becoming a dancing monkey,
Hmm.
especially when I was. I think I wrote about it in my last book when I was in Mogadishu and I had the decapitated head of that suicide bomber at my feet. I was like, I'm taking this thing a little bit too far. Um, so I was aware of being a dancing monkey at that stage, and that's when I moved to New York, and I kind of got a bit more private, and I made the conscious decision to stop writing about my private life in New York. You know, less so because I realized I was becoming performative, and I was kind of lost to that.
Hmm.
So I kind of that the milestone, if I had any milestone at all, it was moving to New York and then hitting 30 as well. For some reason, when I hit 30, there was like a switch that went off, and I got suddenly concerned with my future, especially financially, setting myself up like. Instead of going job top, what am I going to do? I should invest. I should start some businesses.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not going to die. I always had this idea I was going to die young, but that's when I started to think more long term. So I'd say 30 more so. 35 is just a nice milestone. You know, people think 35, all right, that's it tends to be a good time when you start thinking about having kids, I think for men. I think 35 is a pretty good time.
For sure. And so what advice would you have to men and ladies as well in their late 20s and into their early 30s who they're starting to have those thoughts of, oh, I need to settle down, I need to settle down, but on the other hand, we also have more freedoms than ever. We have more, Zoom and softwares and whatnot than ever. And we could just keep going, keep pushing, book that next ticket to Brazil, book that next ticket to, whatever, Africa. Or we could sort of do something a little bit more down the middle with like medium adventure, but also medium sort of settling down. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I am of a firm believer you don't necessarily have to compromise. Now, obviously, you do a little bit, but uh, just because I'm more settled down now. I've bought a place, I've businesses, I'm starting a family, but at the same time, I'm going sailing for a couple of months, and I was in Pakistan with the lads there earlier in the year. I've been on. I went to like 11 countries here, and that was during COVID. That was during COVID last year. So I mean, you don't necessarily have to give up just because you're thinking about settling. It doesn't mean you can't adventure. I don't know where that thought comes from. Now, if you're if you're obviously not as untethered as you are in your early 20s, but you have to think about your future at the same time. So
Hmm.
I don't know if I have any particular advice. The thing is, I'm not gonna. I tend to not be preachy. I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm just kind of taking things as they come, trying to live the best life I can. It was actually really hard to make the transition to settle life compared to what the life I was living before, and also because I had this blog and this brand called Naughty Nomad. All of a sudden, I was the nice settled guy, I guess, but that's
Hmm.
not very marketable. So there was a lot of incongruency there. Um, I don't think anyone should look for advice to anyone else. I think you can only do what's right for you.
Makes sense. And I definitely want to talk about your sailing trip in detail. But before we get there, I just wanted to double down on the books. Of course, Naughty Nomad and My Life as a Mexican Pirate, available on Amazon. My question for you is, how much more difficult was that first book than you originally anticipated? And what made you such a glutton for punishment to go through it again? And was it easier the second time around?
No. It was torture. It was years of torture. I don't know. Like the first book, I don't know. I'd never written a book before. I had no idea how much work was involved. It was the biggest thing I ever done. I mean, all the edits and the time, years and years and like the hours. I mean, I think if you worked out how much you get paid versus the hours you work when it comes to a book, it's probably like you're a Bangladeshi slave laborer. uh, I did the first book because I felt like I had to do it. Because I felt like a story that needed to be told. I had a great story that needed to be told.
Agreed.
And then my second book, I always knew I was going to write a second one. Um, I just did, and my travels got so intense because I knew I was writing a second one. I didn't want to disappoint my readers either. Uh, but after my last one, I'm not in a hurry to write another one. I'm not in a hurry. I don't even know if I will. I'm just kind of this whole sailing thing and this next phase of my life I'm doing for me. I'm not thinking about oh, if I do this reckless, stupid, dangerous thing, this will be a really good story, which I often did.
Mhm.
I got myself in terrible, terrible situations, but I got great stories out of them.
And there's a phrase, right, that the Irish is like a land of poets and storytellers. How does it go?
Yeah, saints and scholars, and that's yeah, there's a few American a cozy American idioms for that, but yeah, saints and scholars. But writers, we're also known for our writers, of course. Musicians, everyone plays guitar, everybody sings.
Mhm.
It's definitely an artistic culture. Uh, yeah, and obviously, there's been countless Irish writers who are well known throughout the world. So it is a culture that fosters that kind of
Mhm.
artistic expression.
And do you feel like you're in that vein of great Irish writers and
Well,
storytellers
clearly,
and
like
explorers?
Joyce and Wilde got nothing on me. Like, no, 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 no. I just got like, I mean, my books are they're kind of dirty, you know. They're a bit racy. So I don't think I'd be like I sent my last one out to tons of literary agents to try and get a mainstream publisher on board, and I got the same feedback from everyone. It was like nobody is going to touch this thing. It was like completely politically incorrect,
And
the
that's on the second
opposite of
one,
the
and that's on
zeitgeist.
a guy with a track record in sales.
Yeah, and a following and stuff like that. They said no freaking way. This is absolutely unpublishable smut. But absolutely against the woke zeitgeist.
Do you know Paul Theroux? He's a American
Yeah.
travel writer, and
Mhm.
he's still going and cranking it out. And he goes on a trip. He'll go to the American South or Patagonia or whatever it is, and then he'll crank out a book on it. And it's observations. And I'm sure his earlier work was a bit more raw and a reflection of the time. And now his books kind of reflect the thoughts of maybe a cranky old guy, but I mean, cheers to him to be still exploring, and then also, you know, creating that output and creating a body of work and a portfolio and something to look back on and be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to. I mean, writing a book is tremendously satisfying when it's finished.
Hmm.
You can it's there forever then. So if anyone's thinking about doing it, well, first of all, don't do it for the money. Do it because you really, really want to write a book. I think
Hmm.
that's why most writers write.
And was it easier the second time around? Did you figure out better techniques of even just like how to store
Yeah.
things in Google Docs or how to just like ways of making more efficient? What kind of epiphanies did you have?
Good question. Yeah, well, for one, it was still difficult, but your writing skill definitely improves. The way you structure a story, you're more concise with your language. New writers have a habit to be overly flowery and descriptive. Um, yeah, so I definitely think my writing vastly improved from the first one. I read the first one back, and now even though it's got great reviews and it's done really well, I read it now like, oh god, I would write this completely different now.
Hmm.
Um, just small things you learn. You improve your skills as a copy editor, make your sentence more punchy. Um, how
Hmm.
you phrase things. Now, luckily, I'm from a country that definitely helps because the way the Irish express themselves, we have a knack for storytelling. We are a nation of storytellers. That's certainly
Hmm.
true. So that kind of helps with the voice in the book, and also kind of the whole piratey aspect of it, of the last one. That kind of was a little bit of a guide as well. In terms of lessons, of course, you learn a lot about structure, how to structure a book, what you're trying to do in terms of the overall arching storyline, like the meta story.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And the best thing to do is like find a friend who'll help you out. Get them to read a first draft, give you some just general feedback, maybe one or two people if you can, and then you write your second edit, or you write your what I would do. I'd write the first draft, then I would go through it chapter by chapter. I would do the second edit, and then pass the chapter to my friend, and then while he's looking over the second edit of that chapter, I'm working on the second edit for the next chapter, and we go through that for the whole book, and then on his feedback, I would write the third draft.
Mhm.
And then on that, I'd be giving it to more friends. I'd be looking at a copy editor at that phase. And but at the end of the day, you're talking about like 7 edits. It takes years.
Mhm.
Yeah, it takes years.
And would you put like each chapter in its own file and then only compile it at the end?
Yeah, that's how I would do it. Yeah, I would double space. There's a kind of a standard format for copy editors. So it's like double space lines, all chapter by chapter. There's an exact form you kind of follow, and then they actually edit that. When they edit the docs, they have little notes. It's all done in Microsoft Word. It's a fun experience. Writing the first draft is torture. It is really, really hard. Editing is fun. I liked editing, like making things, improving things.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's a good idea to like get a bit high or have a drink or two for the second edit, or sometimes even the first edit, because you get a bit more expressive, you get a bit more playful. I definitely did a lot more in the first book. I was getting high a bit and just kind of just coming up with this like kind of mad imagery or mad phrases. It was it's a serious process. It takes a lot of years. Even the audiobook, oh my god, I've been 18 months working on this thing. You're talking about, for every chapter is 10 hours of work. I mean, you're doing 2 hours in the boot and then 8 hours editing. It's a
Ah.
lot of work. Well, the way I do it, it's a lot of work because I'm such a goddamn perfectionist. It kills me.
I've actually seen quite a few screenshots of people who put out a book and then put out the audiobook, and the audiobook makes 10x the amount of money because Amazon's pretty good. They really want people on Audible or whatever, and they pay their creators well. So it's definitely a good angle to go and should
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
be
I
fruitful.
said I had to do like I think 20 African accents in it. That was difficult.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Middle Eastern accents and so many chicas. I don't like. I'd edit the voice so like their pitches are higher as well. And oh god, I
So
can't wait.
people that have read the books are gonna have to buy the audiobook just to listen to Mark's accents.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah, I said I'm definitely finishing the last of the chapters before I sail, because I want to be editing those last chapters while I'm sailing. Um, so hopefully, I've been saying that, mind you, I said it was going to come out last year and it didn't. So I just hope it gets out there soon. But that's kind of my big project I'm finishing at the moment.
Okay, awesome. And we're gonna get to the sailing for sure because this is the My Latin Life podcast, and you're coming over to our part of the world. So we're happy to welcome you over here. I wanted to ask a bit
Where are you living,
about.
by the way? Sorry, where are you based right now?
I'm
Playa del
in
Carmen.
Playa del
Ah,
Carmen, Mexico right now. I travel, more or less all around the Americas, top to bottom. But Playa del Carmen is a great community and good weather here this time of year as well. So much better than back in Canada, -20.
oh, absolutely. I imagine. Oh, that's cool, man.
So I always had a question about the Mexican pirate stuff. It's not even one question. I want to hear more in detail about it because I felt like every single pirate mission could have been its own book. And you've done it in 20 countries. I mean, Congo, Somalia, you name it, West Africa. And I feel like in the books, I wanted a little bit more detail of sort of like the monotony of going out. So everyone knows what it's like to go out. Maybe you get a couple people in a living room, you start blasting some music, you get the pre-game, pre-drink going, you up the vibe, maybe you order a taxi to the bar, maybe you wait in line, you pull up to the bar, you start interacting with people, start sort of building the environment, making yourself kind of the kings of the environment, taking it from there. Um, what is it like? Basically, like coordinate, like basically herding the cats and getting everyone into Mexican pirate gear. What's it like ordering the cab or walking to the bar or whatever? What's it like when you're standing in line or in front of that bouncer and he's like, I don't know, guys. Like,
Yeah.
talk about some of the mechanics of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Definitely. So usually, you start to get ready at home, and it starts off always the same. Certain people are getting ready, start pouring a few pre-drinks, and then each person starts to look more and more ridiculous. The fake mustaches come on. Like, even if you're tired and you're partying, you've been partying for a week straight, the mustache come on, you blow up the giant banana, you put a sombrero on, and and uh, and the bandanas and the eye patches, and it's impossible not to just like laugh at the whole thing. And you just feel the energy coming up. And we had the lightsabers as well. Sometimes we'd switch
Hmm.
between inflatable swords. If we could get our hands on the lightsabers, they were like swords that lit up different colors.
Yep.
And there was sometimes we'd have certain people who'd be tired, some members of the group, but I always had energy. I don't know why. I never had an off night. I was always the one who had the most energy. So I was always like, come on, lads, let's fucking go. Uh, but but I wasn't always the craziest one. It was always someone who kind of took the lead that night. Everybody had their kind of night, and so you just get up, you go ready, and we're just yarring and and getting like pumping ourselves up. It's kind of very caveman-y, what we were doing. Very
Hmm.
caveman-y, just drunken and grunting, and we be we do a lot of like we'd be like and all this kind of thing. Like, we were like animals. And honestly, it didn't get old. Like you said, monotony. The only time you would kind of like it wouldn't land was when you end up perchance in a quiet bush town in transit, where it's kind of like, oh, this place is dead. And often I found the opposite. I found it was hard to find places that matched our energy, because usually people have the
For
opposite.
sure.
People,
You're the highest energy people in the venue for sure.
yeah, yeah, and so I often found like there wasn't enough. I never had enough in places. That's why I kind of moved to New York. And even New York, I felt there wasn't enough energy for me. I'd be out on a Monday. I was like, "Where's the party?" And there was, the scene gets quite quiet. I mean, Dublin has a better Monday and Sunday and Tuesday night than New York does. Um, but yeah, so I never felt monotonous. I felt it was monotonous. You just kind of something exciting is going to happen, because the thing is, it's never a normal night when you're dressed so crazily. It's an adventure, and something every time you go out. It never gets old when people are staring at you like, "What the hell?" Or the attention you get, or the girls coming up trying to rob your hat. You have to be on, because people are on you. So yeah, it's
No,
a different.
I didn't say monotony or
Yeah,
monotony, but more
the
just like
humdrum, the routine, the
the
routine.
yeah, but not like more just like the mechanics of like how do you like coordinate everyone? How do you like one of my questions would be like, so what happens at the end of the night when some people want to go home at different times, and then there's just like one guy on the curb with the outfit still on, and he's like by
Yeah, that
himself,
happens a lot.
and
People
he's
go
like,
missing. They
geez.
just go missing. Like, one by one, they just go missing. Like, you might not. I mean, I think it was without naming names. I think our last we were in Belarus and Ukraine the other day.
Mhm.
I mean, one lad we didn't see for forever. I mean, he went missing at 8 o'clock in the day, and he showed up at 12 o'clock the next day without a passport, and like wallet gone, and like that kind of thing used to always happen.
And so what happens when the group sort of like reduces down to like maybe just two guys and it's hard to keep the energy going, or you're the
Yeah,
guy that finds himself by himself at the end of the night and your state can just drop so fast because there's people staring
yeah.
at you and you don't have that like that something to like bounce
Yeah, because
off of.
when you're on your own, if you're like the one drunk pirate on your own, sitting down in the corner with the good glass, it's not. Listen, we've all been there, but it's not good. You just get a taxi home, I suppose. I know that definitely some of the lads, they would get really messy. That's what would happen. They would get messy, and they would just
Mhm.
get in a taxi and go home. Um, yeah,
Because
but
it's a fine line. Because you can boost your state and do it sober, but I feel like drinking is a part of it, and maybe it's easy to take a little bit too far.
oh god, yeah, and we would get so messy. Oh my god, the stories. And I can't say too much, but I had to edit out a lot of my book for my friends because of like I left out so many stories you wouldn't believe, because they were just carnage. And I still would want them to be my friends. So by telling the stories, but yeah, I had to retone that book is toned down.
I'm sure.
That book is toned down,
So
and it
let's, how
didn't read
about,
like a
do you
toned
think you
down
could
book.
reward the listeners right now and give us maybe one story that didn't make the cut? I wish I could just name a country and have you tell a story, but I'm not sure.
You probably could. You probably could.
Um,
Somewhere random.
to me, it's like all Africa and maybe Eastern
Mm.
Europe. Um, Liberia. Did you do it in Liberia?
Yeah. I was in Liberia.
That's one of your favorites, I believe, as well, or Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone. Yeah. Oh God.
So how
Well,
does
I
that
have.
work? Like they don't even see Europeans that much, and then you're pulling up, and they have no idea what to make of you. Anyway, so what can you tell us about Liberia pirating?
That was because they said they don't get a lot of tourists. That was really intense. That place. I talk about this in the book, so it's not going to be anything particularly new. But for those who haven't who haven't read, I'm trying to think if there's any details I could share. Uh, I mean, I'm pretty candid with my own stuff. With my own stories, I'm pretty candid about what happens. So I mean, we rock up in a nightclub there, and we had like the lightsabers. We upgraded to lightsabers at that point, and and we needed them because you need them to fight the women off. Just like get away, get away. It was like being rock stars. And the thing is, if a girl couldn't compete for you, she would grab her friend, and it would be they'd be like, oh, there's two of us now. What are you gonna do? What is this? What like that would be the challenge to the other girl. And then it was a case where she went off and got her mates, and then there was like two pairs competing. I had to run to the bathroom because it was just so intense. Um, yeah, my mate was in bad shape. He went home early, but I end up just picking somebody that had their own place because Liberia is. Oh, there was actually there is a detail that oh no, I think I wrote about that in the book. But one of the girls from the club had found out where my friend lived and went back to the hotel and knocked on his door with another girl. So he was sleeping. He went back sleeping. In the middle of the night, opens up. There's two women there, and they want to come inside and have fun. Like that shit doesn't happen anywhere. Now he didn't do it because he didn't trust them. That's the thing about Africa. You can't trust the girls, man. It's so dodgy. So you have to try and find people with their own place. So there's a lot of Africa's it can be pretty dodgy, especially at nighttime. The people you meet. I know my mate Gilly. He bought a pet chicken over in Liberia, and he went traveling with us. Captain Cluck.
I remember
So
this. Yep.
yeah, Captain Cluck got a little sombrero for him, and he would just kind of like travel around with us. He didn't go to any of the clubs or nothing, but just kind of it was so random. Yeah, Liberia was an interesting spot, and there was and then I remember the next day I was in my hotel bar, and another girl had went to the hotel bar, and she said, "Oh, I saw you were at this club last night, and I found out where you were staying. I wanted to meet you." This was like in the middle of the day, and we ended up getting a room. But it just kind of it was the nearest thing I could describe it is like it's like being a rock star. What I imagine a rock star or a pop star's life is like, doing what we were doing. That's the nearest thing I can compare it to. So it was kind of an unreal reference point,
Hmm.
to experience that. It really gave me an interesting perspective. The problem is it had an addictive quality. So it was hard to kind of do what I'm doing now and kind of simmer down. It took me a couple of years before I was able to kind of come back to being a normal person. But yeah, that's all my notes on Liberia. I don't have any secret stories. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I just think the mechanics of it are hilarious. It's not just like you order, an Escalade and it's all smooth, and then you roll up. It's like, you get in this super rickety taxi, and there's four of you guys with hats and some weird radio blaring, and the taxi's like this, and then you get to the door, and they're like, "Who are you?" And then like, I don't know, like how, you know what I mean? Like it must be just like insane.
Yeah,
Do
yeah, yeah.
do you think it, like, actually was, like, sort of like an anti-robbery defense as well, where you were just, like, so present that they couldn't mess with you as much?
Yeah, yeah, because you draw so much attention that it's a bad thing for would-be perpetrators. I mean, think about it. Like, if imagine you're in the middle of a war zone, like when we were in Syria or we were in Somalia. If there was some sort of crossfire, you'd look at the guy with the sombrero and goes, "Well, he's not against me, that's for sure. I don't know who the hell that guy is, but I'm not going to shoot him." Uh, but yeah, I guess. Yeah, but at the same time, man, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. You attract so much attention. You, the thing
Right, the
you
sharks are
attract
circling.
the sharks are you get seen. So you get seen, and that
Right,
can
it's like, did
be
you
a problem.
have, like, maybe, like, a time limit in there? Like, you go into a dodgy nightclub or venue, I feel like first 2 hours you're chill, but then after a while, maybe, you start to see some, like, crazy, like, eyes staring and shit like that, and it starts getting a little eerie, or how you know what I mean?
The opposite. The opposite. You go in, you're like, oh my god, this is intense. Everyone's staring at you. Everyone's eyeing you up. It's a new place. And then after 2 hours, a couple of drinks, you're chilling. Then it's the complete opposite. Uh, I no, I don't worry about the guys. I worry about the girls, man.
Huh.
You know, if you take a girl home, is she going to rob your stuff? Is she going to call somebody? Is it a honeypot trap? I've been in all sorts of dodgy situations. Anyone who's read the last book was about what happened in Djibouti when I basically got held hostage, and I had all those girls come up.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff was terrifying. And there's been a couple of situations with robberies, and one story that wasn't in the book. I'm not going to name place. I'm not going to name who it was, but one of my friends basically had a girl like knife to the throat. I came into the room and she had a knife to his throat and was trying to rob him. Yeah, like that kind of thing doesn't happen uh, on a lad's holiday in Paris or Budapest. So yeah, there's been a couple of dodgy situations. So always the threat was from who you're bringing home more so.
Agreed. Agreed.
I mean,
Um
what's Mexico like for that?
Yeah, it's funny. You're talking about Mexican pirates with a guy in Mexico. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to comment on. Playa del Carmen's a pretty normal place, sort of a conflux of North America meets Latin America. It's sort of just maybe only like one foot deep or one toe deep into Latin America. So it's kind of like a good balance. They have Walmart here, good Wi-Fi. You can walk to the beach. I can see the beach from my balcony. And everyone's friendly. It's probably a mix of maybe like 1/3 locals, 1/3 Mexican tourists, 1/3 international tourists. So you get sort of like a good mix and vibe when you go out, and it's a great place. It's a place that won't challenge you particularly, but it's a good place to sort of get your feet wet and get started and start learning more about Latin America.
Yeah, for sure. My brother was just over there, and he loved that part of Mexico. He absolutely thought it was a blast. Tulum and Playa del Carmen.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
supposed to go over there for last New Year's, but they didn't give me a visa for America, and my flight was through New York. But I'll get there eventually. Um, Listen, I have only 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Is there any what's the kind of any main questions you want to ask
Yeah,
me?
sure. Let's talk a little bit about the Caribbean adventures, and then
Yes.
sort of to end it off, I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts, sort of on the future of the community and sort of nomad capitalist type
Hmm.
stuff, and how much we've sort of seen that grow in the past 2 years. So tell us a little bit about the Caribbean adventure. It makes a lot of sense because, as you pointed out, it's impossible to fly like spot to spot. You can't fly from Guadalupe to Saint Martin or whatever it is. The only way to do it is by sailboat, right? If you want to hit all the islands and knock all these countries out without flying to Miami every time.
Exactly. And I just published, I swear to God, an hour ago, my first post on a new blog I'm doing called If You Go to marksales.com. I got marksales.com, and it's kind of a new blog just about my wholesale. It's a PG, so the
Yep.
family and friends can follow along on my adventures. And I literally just published a post about that, saying exactly what you said. So I've had this plan when I was living in New York 7 years ago. I figured that the only way to do it properly was by boat or by sea. And originally, I actually wanted to get a jet ski because
I read that.
yeah, and go all the way from Florida down to Venezuela, because the biggest gap is Turks and Caicos and Hispaniola. It's 160 kilometers. Jet ski can get up to 200 kilometers, even more. That far range. And I was thinking, let's form a little jet ski gang, get 4 or 5 of us, the pirate thing. It's just like, how do we take the Mexican pirates to the next level? Form a pirate jet ski gang. That was it was obvious, but my friends are a bit concerned about the
If
whole
it
thing
rains.
breaks down or all sorts of things. The sea, a little jet ski, big seas. I mean, it was a really dumb idea. Cool, but a really stupid idea. And then I was thinking, what if we just combine our money? Maybe we get a cheap sailboat. Then we'd have a kitchen. We could have a bathroom. We'd have a bed. But I thought, no way you could get one for like under 10 grand or something. But actually, you can get sailboats real cheap. So I kind of had to do to buy a sailboat. I had enough money after New York, but then I thought, what was I going to do afterwards? I need to build up some passive income and just establish myself a little better before I blew all my money on a sailboat and then have to pay to store it somewhere. It just wasn't a great plan to spend all my cash on that. So moved to Malta. A few years later, now it is. I got my day skippers, set up a few bars. Things are going well. I invested in Bitcoin back when it was $630 or so. And actually, I bought this. I have 2 boats now. I have one in Sardinia, and this one I got now is literally I've just used crypto. So I bought it in Grenada, and the plan is to go all the way up Grenada to. Wait, can I actually? I can share my screen. Maybe I have a little animation here. 1 second. Can I share my screen? Is it possible?
I've never tried it.
Okay, 1 second. Yes, I can. Just give me a second here. I'll show you the trip.
And it looked like you were going from like south to north, kind of like starting at the bottom.
South to north, and then just give me a second here. I have it here. 1 second. South to north. So starting in Grenada, going up, and then kind of skipping every second island, doing a loop at the top, and then coming down, visiting the islands that I didn't visit before. Because okay, I'm going to share the screen now. Okay, here we go. Yeah, because the boat came with a free mooring in Grenada, and Trinidad, they're the 2 countries in the region that are below the hurricane belt. So it was
Nice.
a perfect scenario, and it was a 32-foot pocket cruiser boat. It couldn't have worked out better for me, to be honest. I'm just going to share the screen. Share screen.
And obviously, you're inspiring people with the idea of this trip. I do see this screen. Yeah. How much does it cost to buy a sailboat like this?
1 second. Let me just sail route. Yeah, so look at this. So yeah, so starting in Grenada there. I'll tell you now in a minute. Starting Grenada, so then up to St. Vincent's, to Martinique, then Guadeloupe, round in Guadeloupe to Antigua, Barbuda, then up to St. Bart's, around Anguilla, going to St. Martin, Saba, Status, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, and then down to Dominica, and then finally St. Lucia and back down to Grenada. And that'll take a couple of months.
Whoa, you're doing a full circle, basically.
Yeah. That's the one.
I didn't know that. I guess you got to bring the boat back to Grenada now.
Yeah, I mean it's below the hurricane belt and it's a free mooring, so it makes sense. I can't wait. So that's the plan. It didn't cost. That boat was listed for 12.5 grand US. Oh, by the way, anyone listening, I'm selling this boat at the end of the season as well. So if you guys want to have a sailing adventure, in June, that boat's going to be, I'll be putting up for sale. It comes with a free mooring. So it's like, it's free. It also has a wind generator on it, has a TV on it, dinghy. I mean, it's got everything. It has everything.
And do you register the boat in Grenada? I know a lot of people register in Panama.
Registering boats is a pain in the ass. But Poland made the most sense, believe it or not.
Poland.
Yeah, Poland, believe it or not. Yeah, I got my little my Polish registry here.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's the easiest place for Europeans now to two. Look, see, that's my little Polish registration there. You can't really see it, but yeah, it's the easiest place for Europeans to register boats at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely something we could talk about on my Latin life. Registering boats and everything. What's your particular affinity with Latin America? It's something that, if I may ask, is your significant other,
She's Colombian.
she's Colombian, right?
Yeah, she's coming. She's cooking up a feed right now. In fact, yeah, and she actually just opened her own restaurant here in Malta as well.
No way. Arepas?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yeah,
Arepa?
arepas. The son of arepas. She makes a mean arepa. Sells. She's first Colombian to set up a business here in Malta.
Wow.
It's Colombian food, and they're packed, so it's great. And because I own three places, and she's had one, and it was all her own cash and stuff as well. Her and her dad. So yeah, that's going well, and yeah, and obviously I speak Spanish as well. My family, we had a small place in the south of Spain when I was growing up. So every year we would spend a month in the south of Spain. So I always had a fondness for the language and Latin culture.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that made your content seem intelligent is I think when were going through the books, you would reference how you were making an effort to speak French and to speak the languages. So do
Yes,
you
I love
learn
language.
do you learn a little bit of Maltese? I think you've spent time with Arabic.
Yeah,
Have you spent some time with Italian, which I guess is important in Malta, Spanish now? Just speak a
yeah.
bit about your language learning.
I love languages. I was terrible at them in school, funny enough. And then I got into Arabic when I went to my first African trip because Egypt and Sudan, and I learned Egyptian Arabic, and I studied I ended up studying it for my masters. In fact, I did Spanish and Arabic with my masters, and then I got into Russian
Mhm,
and Chinese,
mhm.
Mandarin from my Moscow to Manila trip, and I was really fond of Russian, and I keep going back to it because I go to a lot of Russian speaking places. Um, and then French when I went to West Africa, and I'm actually brushing up on my French now for the French islands for this trip.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I've done a month in Thai and Farsi. Those are very difficult languages, though I may say, and obviously we have to learn Irish in school. Uh, no Italian. I should, but I don't know any. But yeah, I use Pimsleur. I use Pimsleur. I use their courses. I think they're amazing. It's all audio, less focus on grammar, all about communication. It's not about writing. It's literally just purely about communication. And even after I think a month of Russian, I went on a few dates in Russian. And after 2 months in French, I was having conversations easily. So I love languages. I think if you're going to travel, do an audio course. It is so much better. It makes the experience so much more enriching.
It's true. It's true. All right. So last question, basically, as we're wrapping up. Um, you know, I think my Latin life and myself personally, we were kind of early to getting second residencies, looking into second passports, and generally internationalizing your lifestyle beyond your country of origin, not being so dependent on all your money coming from one currency, things like that. Internationalizing your lifestyle. I've definitely seen that you've taken steps in that direction as well. You've written about the online offline dichotomy, and obviously, basing yourself in Malta as an Irishman, and with some Polish IDs running around and whatnot. How do you think about internationalizing your life, tax strategies, setting up sort of backup plans, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm mad into this now, especially since I got into crypto. How do you preserve your wealth, legally avoid taxes? I'm a big fan of Nomad Capitalists and
Hmm.
their whole movement. Go where you
Hmm.
treat it best. And Malta is quite advantageous from a tax perspective because you can set up an offshore company in Gibraltar, and there's only it works out at an effective corporate tax rate of 5% here. If you send your money to the holding company and send it back to Ireland, you can avail of that. If you send it back to Malta, though, you're paying normal tax. But yeah, so I think people should go where they're treated best, to use Andrew Henderson's phrase. I definitely think people should internationalize multiple passports. Um, and I think this is definitely, especially now with the whole COVID situation, the way we've seen our governments be completely tyrannical, take away our rights, restrict our freedoms, restrict our movements. people need to, the only way to combat that is to be sovereign international individuals. So we need to regain sovereignty, and that's become more important than ever. I mean, part of the thing that inspired the boat here is I live on a tiny rock. Malta is tiny. It's tiny, tiny. And they closed
Yep.
the airports at the start of this thing. So it's like, phew, not trapping me here. Um, so I do think it's more than ever at the time to be looking into second passport. I think the way you guys are pivoting to deliver information to people about second citizenships and how they can improve their tax situation. I think it's a great direction to go in. I think it's more important than ever, man. I'm super pro crypto. I'm a libertarian. Go out and get it. And I think the only way to, I mean, you can go and complain on Twitter, but oh, this sucks. And you can be getting angry looking at your Facebook feed and reading the news articles, and you know, I look at people back in Ireland, and it's like, I mean, it's so restrictive over there. It's sad to see, and I feel sorry for
Hmm.
my friends who live there, because
Hmm.
they had one of the most restrictive lockdowns in Europe. You know, I had my wedding, and none of my friends and family from Ireland were legally able to come and visit me, because the government said you're not allowed to leave the country unless you have an extremely you know, an essential reason, essentially, and
Hmm.
weddings didn't cover it. So um, it's more important than ever for people to get their crap together, and to pursue to become as sovereign individuals.
Thanks, Mark, for that. I appreciate that. And, just wanted to thank you so much for your continued support of My Latin Life over the years. I think we've had a
Yeah,
good
I've been a fan for
relationship.
ages on OGs.
Absolutely. And, we'll continue to collaborate into the future. And this was a amazing interview and conversation. And thanks so much for coming on. And, this will really help us kind of kick off the podcast in a big way, get some big guests, because we can say, yo, we just had Mark Zolo on. So.
Yeah, people. Do you remember Mark Zolo back in the day? That guy. Oh my god. Well, it has been at this rate, but listen, thank you very much for that. And yeah, man, hopefully we'll see each other at some stage when maybe when I'm coming through Mexico at some stage.
Absolutely, bro. Any last shout outs, anything you want to promote here?
Not much. I said I just started that new blog, Mark Sales. I'm probably going to start. It's on Substack. I'm probably going to do something for under my name, Mark Zolo, on Substack as well. The stuff that I just write about the things that I don't want my family and friends reading, because I'm not do blogging anymore, but I still have a lot to say that might be
Hmm.
controversial. And also, I want to give men advice. I still want to give men advice. I don't think I don't think there's a lot of good resources for young guys out there and how to live their lives. Also, you know, improve their prospects of women and travel and adventure, all that stuff. I still I'm not hanging up my boots just yet. Just I'm just departing from the Naughty Nomad brand. That's all. But yeah, so check out My Life as Mexican Pirate on Amazon, Naughty Nomad on Amazon, and hopefully soon I'll have the audiobook out. And anyone going to New York, I have a book on New York called Naughty Nomad's Guide to New York City. Extensive guide and quite funny. I had fun writing that. Yeah, so that's me, man. Yeah, and my YouTube channel. Check out my YouTube channel. That's I'm really into the whole YouTube and filmmaking and all that kind of thing. That's, you can just look up Naughty Nomad or Mark Zolo. Mark Zolo, that's the one.
Yes, man. Please continue to make YouTube videos, and maybe we can sync up again after you finish your big Caribbean trip. So with that, bon voyage, buen viaje, and wish you all the best on the trip, bro.
All right, adios, amigo, and take care.
Ciao.